So I'm here with Josh, and Josh, you experienced some things similar to the things that Ruth experienced, and I just want to thank you for taking the opportunity to share with us this evening. So, would you just tell us a little bit about Wendy?
Yeah, so I met Wendy when I was in college. We started dating my senior year in college. She was in some of the business classes with me at York College. So um, we had friends in some of the same circles, and I met her in one of my classes, and we just started to get to know each other. Started to date in college, and it was uh, kind of an interesting situation because when we started to date, she was a sweet girl, had a great heart, and was spiritually minded, but she was not a believer. So I definitely always, when I tell this story, I always like to preface it by saying we didn't really necessarily follow God's ideal plan in the beginning of our relationship. But we started dating senior year in college, and we got married in 2006.
Okay. So what were some of the first signs that your lives were about to face a major interruption or take a life-changing detour?
Yeah, so I was on a business trip out west, and I think it was early February, late January 2008. And I'd come home, and we had had a little bit of snow, maybe like 2 to 3 inches. And she had gone out and she like just shoveled the driveway and the sidewalk, I think. And she was saying she's having some back pain, but we had just kind of equated it to maybe she pulled something shoveling. Sometimes backs do weird things and just kind of tweak out, and so we didn't really think anything of it. But as we went on and we started going to a family doctor, and he started to diagnose it, and the pain just kept getting kind of worse and worse very rapidly. So that was, like I said, maybe early February. And then we progressed to the orthopedic doctor, OSS, in York. And then she ended up having an MRI, and that's when they found a tumor in her back, and they found that it was she had cancer. Then eventually was diagnosed as Hodgkin's lymphoma in April of 2008.
So you mentioned that she did accept Christ at some point, and she was a fairly new Christian. So as a fairly new Christian, how did she handle the interruption or detour?
So the amazing thing was, it was a really, as I said before, it was kind of a really risky uh, relationship for me to enter into, but it was amazing how God provided throughout that, because I had a moment with her before we got married when I said, basically like, Wendy, I love you, but we can't get married if you aren't following Christ. It's not biblical. And it really wasn't a fair position for me to put her in. But God had just so much grace uh, because she was on that path, and she accepted Christ before we got married, obviously. But when when we hit that roadblock, when we hit that detour, she just grabbed. I mean, she already had a huge hunger for the Lord, and she loved Him, but she just really kind of grabbed onto Him, and really was supported not just by her faith and her relationship with Him, but by believers in her circle and friends that just came to minister to Him. So God just poured out His love supernaturally on her through the Bible and through her time in devotion to Him, but also through all the people that He brought into her life that just loved on her and just connected with her.
How about you? Did you ever doubt or lose faith or hope during the interruption and detour? Or if you didn't doubt or lose faith or hope, challenges during the detour?
Yeah, so I don't know how far you want me to go into the story, um, but definitely there was some times of hopelessness, of sorrow. The challenge was that it happened so quickly that um, I tend to be more on the pessimistic side. So I was really kind of concerned from the beginning that it was kind of spiraling downward so quickly. So I had I was trying to be supportive of where she was in her illness, but I kind of saw things going so poorly so quickly. I mean, she was diagnosed in April, and by late July, she was gone. So it was a really quick negative plunge for her. So I didn't really, to be honest with you, I didn't have a lot of hope that I kind of saw God's plans as taking her away, even though I know that God can work miracles and he does every day. But there was one little sign of hope, but mostly it was her health deteriorated really quickly.
So how did God demonstrate his faithfulness or love for you, or how did you see God demonstrate his faithfulness or love for you throughout it all?
So the main way, number one, first and foremost, is that Wendy came to a saving knowledge and a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so that gave me hope and confidence throughout our entire, albeit short, relationship. So we were together 4.5 years and married, 2 of those years. And so I just saw the way that he grew her, and even though she was a young Christian, she challenged me in my faith, even though I was supposed to be the more mature Christian and the spiritual leader. But then just the people that God put around us to support us when we were going through the illness and in the hospital, and people that would come with her and sit with her and clean for her, just give us money and support and prayer as we needed it. But then after she passed away, I remember just, I was alone, but I wasn't alone. People continued to reach out to me. Obviously, you were hugely instrumental in just supporting me through that whole crisis. I don't know that I would have been able to get through without, support from you and Amy and other people in our church. So, but then I remember praying to God and saying, God, my heart obviously was that I was lonely and I wanted a wife and I wanted a companion. But I remember praying to God, God, if maybe you don't want that for me, and just change my desire if that's not what your desire is. And so I remember having to come to that point where I think God, often breaks us to the point where if we get to the point where all we really need and desire is him, and we really have a heart that, God, I'm willing to go where you want me to go. After I got to that point, I think God realized that, I was finally being obedient, and I was finally where he wanted me to be before he eventually brought Laura into my life about a year after Wendy's passing.
So what do Laura and Andrew and Ben mean to you after that interruption and detour that you experienced?
So, it's bittersweet, Dwight, because, when you marry somebody, you kind of you make these plans and you have these ideas of what your life is going to look like. And I'm so thankful. I told people, when I was going through this, I said, most people don't even have one person that, that they really truly know that God has put into their life, and that is that kind of gift. And I've gotten 2 wonderful, beautiful women that love God and that follow him. So, I mean, that's awesome. And 2 beautiful, wonderful children that, at least I know that, Andrew loves Jesus. And so, I've gotten far more. If all God gave me was a relationship with him and eternal life, that would be more than I deserved. But, to see God pouring out his love and blessing and a wonderful wife in Wendy, a wonderful testimony through her death. I saw somebody else come to Christ that she, a young woman that she was in our wedding. And then having Laura come through and just have just a fire for God that is unmatched. And then this desire to raise our children with the Lord, it's really amazing, and really is humbling.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing your story with us. I appreciate it. I know that we've alluded to it a number of times, but there's a number of teens that, most of the teens that were part of youth group when that happened are long gone, long graduated. So I think that with the story of Ruth, this is a cool opportunity for you to share your testimony. So we appreciate it. Thanks for sharing with us.
Well, thank you so much.